Let me get a beat, I kick it funky like feet. Let me get a beat, I get a kick it feet it like. Let me get a beat, I kick it funky like feet. Let me get a beat, I get a kick it feet it like. Let me get a beat, I kick it funky like feet.
What time is it for you right now?
We are 25 past 4 at the moment in the afternoon.
25 past 4. So, okay. So you're BST, yeah?
Yeah, it's the same time as in the UK here. We're just straight south.
Palm trees out there on the Canary Islands?
There are, yeah. There's palm trees and a lot of volcanoes.
Really? So Canary Islands sounds like it's a little bit maybe for Spain and for the UK. It's like my Hawaii that we have over here in California because we got volcanoes happening out there. In fact, one of them's been pretty active here as of late. I don't know if you caught the news.
Yeah, it's pretty nice weather here year round because we're so far south.
Yeah.
It's the same time zone as I have in the UK when I'm at home, and lots of beaches fringe the island, and then basically a series of volcanoes make up the landmass of the islands.
Have you ever seen an
not too active?
Besides an upset client, have you ever seen an active volcano?
Yeah, I've seen the metaphorical ones plenty of times, but yeah, it's quite interesting. So they do a little tour here where they take you up to the top of the volcano, and they do things like throw a bucket of water down a hole, and then you wait for sort of 10 seconds, and then the water comes back out incredibly fast and mostly made of steam.
Wow.
And they'll take a bush and sort of throw it down into a hole, and the bush will eventually set on fire after about 30 seconds. So, yeah, interesting.
Yeah, to say the least.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, Alec, what do you stream your music? Spotify, Amazon Prime, or something else?
So I'm very specific. I actually curate all of my own music playlists on Apple Music. I used to be a DJ in my younger days, so I'm quite specific about what I want to listen to. I'd rather curate my own lists and then shuffle through them or play them in sequential order so that they give the right kind of vibe right the way through the tracks.
All right, so I don't want to age you, but when you used to be a DJ, were you spinning the vinyl, or were you on the new age where you're spinning a wheel, but it's actually, it's not, there's no vinyl up on top?
I've kind of had both experiences. So I started off with vinyl, so I had boxes and boxes of vinyl at home, but then it became digital vinyl, where you had a time-coded vinyl that you put onto the record deck and play it through the laptop, but you still get that feeling of playing with vinyl and DJing.
Very nice.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go to your Apple Music. Tell me the last song you had queued up. The last song queued up by Alec Harden-Henry.
Right, okay. Let's have a look. It's I'm just hoping it wasn't the kids on here, because that's not going to go down well.
It might be Baby Shark. You never know, man.
Yeah, I think we were. Let me have a look here and see. So I think we were relaxing last night. So there's a cool tune called "Can't Get Enough" by Benson with 2 N's.
Benson with 2 N's.
Yeah.
Okay, you're turning me on to some new tunes. Well, hello, friends. My name is EP, and I'm happy to welcome you guys back for another EPicHYPE adventure. Today's sponsor is the infamous Prancer.io. Go say hi to Farshid over there for me. Is your cloud secure, or just hoping that it is? Meet Prancer, the platform that puts your cloud compliance on autopilot with AI-driven continuous validation. From policy as code to attack simulation, Prancer hardens your environment before the hackers even try. Ready to shift left and stay ahead? Well, then go check out Prancer.io and take control of your cloud. Well, today on EPicHYPE, my guest is the CEO and founder of Startup Growth. He's been referred to as the startup whisperer you call after your founder-led sales start breaking bones from scaling too fast. He's part strategist, part operator, and fully allergic to the typical growth BS. He doesn't just help startups grow, he helps them grow up without losing their swagger. From boardroom battle zones of early stage chaos, he's the guy founders trust when they're ready to trade brute force for real momentum. Buckle up, folks, because this dude is about to tell us how to scale sales without selling your soul. Manchester, UK has given us Oasis, the Smiths, and the Chemical Brothers. Well, there's one more gemstone coming out of the UK, and allow me to introduce him to you, Mr. Alec Harden-Henry. Alec, what is going on? Welcome to EPicHYPE.
Thanks very much, Edward. It's great to be on the show. What an introduction! I hope that I can in some way live up to that introduction, even in just a small way.
So first and foremost, man, where is home for you? Like, where did you spend your young years running around on a bicycle or skateboard or whatever you were doing?
So I live in a smallish town right near to Manchester called Macclesfield. It's a lovely little town, very close to the Peak District National Park, so you can get out and see a little bit of countryside, but 20 minutes and you can be in Manchester, or even an hour and 40 minutes you're in London for meetings.
Fantastic. Did you ever think all these years later that you'd be hanging out with family in the Canary Islands doing a virtual YouTube show with the guy that has a show called EPicHYPE?
I can't imagine that was crossing my mind sort of 30 odd years ago, but who knows what goes through the mind of a child.
I love it, man. So let's get into it. What's one moment in your startup journey where where you completely flopped? We always talk about people's successes, but I think we also learn from our failures, but let's also help each other. But let's talk about where you completely flopped and how did you secretly level up or bounce back from that? Maybe you can share a story from back in the day.
Yeah, great question. I've probably got two, I would say.
Okay.
So the first one would definitely be my first business development role. I was hired by a small agency as their first sales hire, and then consequently fired 6 months later for not doing a very good job of sales. So wasn't the greatest start to my sales career, having moved over from account management, relationship management into new business. But learning from that, what was really interesting was, this is what, 8-9 years ago now.
Yeah.
It obviously felt awful at the time. It felt like the end of the world. And so as I always did, I took counsel and from friends, and that's a posh way of saying going out for pints and complaining.
Yeah.
And had to think about what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. And I just didn't feel there was a massive process where I'd gone. It was, surprisingly, given what I do now, it was a business that was reliant on founder-led sales, but there wasn't a huge amount of structure in place to then hand that over to someone junior who was trying it for the first time. So I went somewhere bigger that had more structure and process, and I intentionally went and sought somewhere where I felt that would be the case. And so that's how I kind of bounced back from that particular setback. So it was through reflection of what had happened, and then how I could remedy that, because I was fairly confident that I knew how to go out and do new business and growth. So that was the first one. And then the second one, I almost or did repeat the same error that had happened, but on the other side. So I was a commercial director and then managing director of an influencer marketing technology platform. And at the point that the sales needed to scale beyond me, I hired my first new business person and did a terrible job of onboarding them. And we parted ways 3 months later.
That's such an important part. Yeah. A lot of people make that mistake of assuming just because what they heard from somebody, their last job, or what they see on their resume, if you don't actually take the time to do the sales enablement. I've been on both sides of that, where I didn't do a good enough job and I didn't have somebody doing a good enough job. So continue.
Yeah. So, and it's now in the role that I take on now, advising startups how to make that transition from founder-led sales to a scalable sales function. Importantly, that very tricky transition to the first sales hire. The challenge is that larger organizations have probably time and resource and expertise in specific areas to be able to put those structures together. They almost have those structures already because of the size of them and where they've got to. But when you're a startup, everything is reliant on you as the founder. You've got the business off the ground. You are wearing so many different hats, but typically a successful startup is gonna work because founder-led sales is working. And that's almost the magic that the founder brings, which is a lot of passion for a specific problem that they are able to solve, and then sort of determination or grit or whatever you want to call it, that kind of by hook or by crook, we're going to make this work mentality. And then quite often an industry network, perhaps from their previous role, where they've built up this industry network over many years. And so when they start out on their own and start building their business, they're in a position where they actually know plenty of people that they could become clients of theirs. But then the challenge is that at the point that you then want to scale beyond that, you've almost, I won't say exhausted your network, but it's time for you to go and find new business from people who don't know you yet.
Yeah.
There's quite often not a process in place to do that. They're not really sure how to go about doing it. And they don't have the expertise of having built something like that themselves, or not necessarily from scratch. And so they then go out and try and hire a junior new biz person because that's what they can afford.
Yep.
They try to train them. They quickly realize they don't have a playbook or a training process or a documented process. So then they start micromanaging them. So essentially trying to get that person to be the founder who has that founder magic, let's say, which is all of their experience and their expertise and their knowledge of their customers, their knowledge of the industry trends, etc. But you can't impart that. There's a reason they're a founder and they're so experienced. It's very difficult to impart that quickly. So after that, maybe a couple of months of trying to micromanage, then quickly what happens is the new business person gets fired. And actually, if there was just a simple, repeatable, scalable process with a bit of structure, a few key steps to prepare for that new person coming on board, then you increase massively the chances of success.
Well, you had me at process. I think, I can relate that to technology. Speaking of startups, obviously we're both in the same industry, helping and advising. And you look at some of these startups that just they might have some terrific technology and they got some great people, but they don't have a process of how they sell it. And they don't have a process of how they take it to the market. And they don't have a strong process of how they actually build a channel. And that's a very broad term there, channel. There's a lot of different channels within the channel. So let me ask you another question about like something else that you've probably been challenged with, which is founder personalities. Who's the toughest founder personality? You don't have to say his or her name here, but you come across a really difficult personality. It's kind of like their way or the highway, or maybe they're a narcissist, whatever it might be. How do you overcome those personalities where, the one that comes to my head is Gordon Ramsay with Hell's Kitchen, right? Or not the Hell's Kitchen. It's the one where Kitchen Nightmares, where he's going into somebody's kitchen and it's somebody that's been trying for the last 3 to 4, 5 years and they just can't get over the hump. And sometimes it's them. So what are your tips and tricks on how you kind of steer that or guide that, get over the hump?
Okay, so there's a few things to sort of unpack in that. The first thing I'll say is, the world's a big place. There's like, what is it? Is it 7 billion now or 8 billion people on the planet?
7.5, yeah.
Yeah, and you're not going to get on with everyone. And that's not necessarily because they're a bad person. It's not necessarily because you're a bad person. It just might be just this personality clash that's not a great fit.
Yeah.
And so the first thing to say is when you this is my opinion on it, when you do come across those personality clashes, maybe don't go into business together, or maybe don't pursue that too much, because there's some scenarios where it might just be so difficult to get over that vulnerability piece, that getting someone to open up to you so that you can try and impart some knowledge. So it's worth considering that first, whether you're going to end up with a great working relationship with a client, or whether it feels like it's just going to be an uphill battle for a long time and quite painful for everybody involved, including them as well as yourself. So that's the first thing I would say. Then the second is that founders, by their very nature, or certainly quite a number of them, are often quite, because of their entrepreneurial spirit, they're quite passionate about a specific problem and quite strong-minded, very determined to get them to where they are, and that's partly as a result of their personality, and then partly as a result of them having to have figured everything out along the way themselves a lot of the time. You know, if you're maybe on the sort of the tech side of a founder, you know, that doesn't mean you might be great with tech, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're good at HR or good at sorting payroll out or really good at commercial or legal or account management or all the other bits. But as a startup founder, you're responsible for all of them. So you've had to try and figure out things along the way by yourself. And naturally, that possibly puts you into the mind frame that you're able to do everything by yourself, and you get used to doing it all by yourself. So that's quite a common trait, and that makes them probably toughen up a bit and maybe a bit less open and a bit less vulnerable, for example. But being open and vulnerable is quite critical.
Yes.
Because you need, it's pointless me giving cookie cutter advice. I need to kind of understand where the problems are. So is it in, say, lead gen, or is it in sales process,
right,
or is it in trying to make that transition and pass it to somebody else, for example? And so I need to understand that to then be able to at least try and offer some tailored advice that
and they're paying
sense.
you to come in and listen, right? They're coming in for you to ask questions amongst the team and try to find some holes and gaps. So, you know, that it's kind of a trick question, but the reality is, you know, sometimes you just need to say, hey, look, you know what, you're paying me to come in here and help you, and so allow me to help you. Let's talk about like your approach. Your approach isn't typical agency fluff. What's the contrarian belief that you hold about startup growth?
Interesting. Yeah, I like this because I worked in agencies for most of my career, so I kind of get the business model there. And for startups, so if you think about, I'd call this the vicious circle of problems for startups. And it's, as a founder, as I mentioned, you have to have, you have to do everything and wear every single hat, but rarely are you an expert in every single area, but you've got to do it. And you're also very time poor, so you can't really learn to do everything in every area because you haven't got the time to do it. But therefore, you would probably want to delegate to someone who is expert in that area, but you don't have the budget to be able to go and hire someone to delegate it to, which then leaves you in a situation where you have to be the expert in everything again, but you're not the expert. You can see this whole thing going around. So that's the kind of the major problem. So if you think about trying to solve any of those problems, certainly in the expertise space, what I believe is useful is not having a long-term partner that you're continually paying. So for example, in the lead gen area, having a lead gen partner, you're paying thousands of pounds every month to bring leads to you, because that's not investing in your business. As soon as you stop paying, then those leads stop coming. And there's an argument as to whether they're good leads or not. But I think that model where as an agency you're on board and you're just continually working with them, I don't think it works very well for startups. So the approach that I try to take is that old, it's probably a biblical analogy at this point, but it's give someone a fish and they'll feed their family for a day, but teach them how to fish and they can feed their family for a lifetime. So the model I think works a lot better, which is different to agency model, is actually figure out how you're going to make yourself redundant really, really quickly. Any client that works with an agency that I've ever experienced has probably been thinking at some point, we want to take this in-house. And the agencies that did really well were the ones that kind of hit that head on and said, yeah, we know you're going to do that. So let's make sure that as we're doing this work for you, we're building a knowledge transfer and able to pass this over to you at some point. And that's the approach that I think startups need. They need something simple, repeatable, and scalable. They need it very quick. They need it as low cost as possible, certainly delivering really good value, but they don't want to rely on you forever. They want to be able to do it themselves. So just do that with your eyes wide open, offer that service where actually you're out in front of it and you're showing people that and teaching them how to do something, passing on your knowledge and putting them in a better place than they were before they started working with you so they can do it
Well,
themselves.
I gotta imagine a lot of startup founders that come to you, they're looking at their revenue and they're just like, we've plateaued, or worse yet, we're going in the wrong direction. Nosedive, we're down, 25, 35, as much as 85%, and they need a turnaround. And something's got to change. And when I say change, something needs to get, or someone needs to get uncomfortable. What's something you believe that makes traditional sales teams uncomfortable?
You know what? It's something um, that's really interesting. It's something that at first a traditional or typical sales team will find a bit uncomfortable at first, but then the comfort level will increase dramatically when they see it working. And it's a phrase that I use. I use it all the time. It really helps to capture what you should be doing. And I call it stop selling and start solving. And the challenge with sales is that most people think that selling, certainly in the UK where sales doesn't have a great name,
Yeah.
people think that selling is convincing someone to buy something that they don't need.
Yeah.
And it's been popularized in loads of movies. Think about The Wolf of Wall Street, for example,
Yeah.
and it makes for great movies. Like, it's interesting and funny, but in reality, it doesn't really work. It's a bit icky because it looks like talking about your features and talking about your products and talking about yourself all the time. But actually, if you're going to stop selling, which is where the comfort level is for a traditional sales team, is talking about the product and how it does this and this feature and
Features
so
and
on.
benefits, right?
And what they need to think about is, well, actually, if you're positioning as solving, then you need to know what the problem is that your target market has. And the best way to find that out is to ask them. And so turning those opportunities from demos and showing people how everything works and actually flipping it on its head and asking questions about the business and where the challenges are and what's going to help, then you can position what the features and benefits are of what your platform does and show that the pain that they currently have is going to be vastly reduced when they start implementing whatever your solution is or whatever your product or service, etc.
Let me share out, give you a little props here for the website. I got your website up here. I'm going to share out. Just got to find the right frame, which I think we'll use this one. Boom. There we go. So yeah, take a minute, Alec, and just a little backstory, guys. I met Alec at Climb 25, just 3 weeks ago, it feels like. And love what he's doing and said, hey, let's get on EPicHYPE and talk about it. Some similarities in what both he and I do in terms of helping, advising startups. And I thought it would be a fantastic opportunity for you to come on and talk about, kind of your superpower. What is your superpower?
I think there's three. There's three that work really well together. Hopefully they're superpowers. One is that whilst I enjoy and focus on the big picture strategy, so think about what you're trying to achieve and don't get bogged down too much in the detail. So whilst I have that big picture, I also get excited by the detail as well. And when you're working with startups, what they don't need is another consultant or another advisor just telling them what to do and then having to do it. Actually, you need to work alongside them. And so getting involved in the detail and helping them, I think that really positions me quite well to work alongside them. The other part is just being aware of the problems that they have and then trying to think about those in kind of buckets. And so and not trying to be everything for everyone. Basically, if you're a startup, you're about to make your first new business hire, you've not done it before, and all the sales have been reliant on you, and you don't have that much of a process, then I can probably help you. But much bigger than that is not my big area of expertise. Much smaller than that, we probably don't have that full product market fit and that repeatable revenue that's started coming in from the network. And so I kind of have a nice sweet spot where I'm aware of their problems in lead gen, in sales process, so not getting ghosted when they send proposals and wasting their time, and then that tricky transition out. And then the last part is that I teach other people to do it. So I'm not trying to hold the knowledge to myself, I'm passing it on. And typically an engagement with a client is 12 weeks to get them set up, 12 weeks to hand over. So I'm kind of 6 months and we're all done.
Very cool. And you posted something last week. I'm going to see if I can share it out here. You posted last week on LinkedIn. I think it was like maybe on Monday. A real cool article on transitioning from founder-led sales without losing the magic. And guys, if you get an opportunity, let me see if I can actually remove this, and then I'll add this to the stage. If you guys go over to Alec's LinkedIn, you guys can look at this article. Last week, Monday, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, I saw that you posted something on LinkedIn, which actually got my attention. And I reached out immediately and I said, "Oh, Alec, let's go. Let's talk about this. This is the core of what I wanted to get into." Talk to me a little bit about this post that you put together, transitioning from founder-led sales without losing the magic. What was the inspiration on you putting this, publishing this out last week on LinkedIn? Kind of maybe just take 30 seconds, throw everybody, the grand net on what this is and what was the inspiration behind it.
Yeah, so every startup, if it becomes successful, is going to have to go through this process of transitioning from founder-led sales to a scalable sales function, because then the business can scale as well. And it's really tricky, that first part of the transition, when you start handing over to somebody else. And I think the major message is don't do it all in one go. Try to do it bit by bit. And the reason for that is that, as much as we perhaps don't want to admit it, in the early stages, the founder is the business. They're involved in every sale. They understand the customers intimately. They're delivering post-sale care. They're involved in so much, and it's all of their experience and their passion and their expertise on a specific problem that has got them to that point. And that's really what the magic is of the founder. But trying to then transition that magic over to someone else is really difficult. So I just wanted to put together a shortish, an article with some key steps and key considerations to think of, so that you can make that transition kind of seamlessly and don't risk it all in one go with handing everything over to someone else, which not only is risky, just feels like frightening for the founder.
Yeah. No, but you did a great job, man. It's a great piece. And guys, you can go find Alec on his LinkedIn. You guys can see the way he spells his name up there on the queue. So go find it. I think it was last week, Monday. He posted it, and it's a good piece. There's a lot of good, helpful things in there that I know startup founders could definitely take from. Let's continue to talk about the startup founders. And you mentioned something, emotional equity. You mentioned that emotional equity founders bring to sales. How do you coach a new team to replicate that authenticity?
It's interesting. The first thing is the first stage is not to replicate too much. At some point, we're going to have to. But what we're actually trying to do is to pass over some of the responsibilities from the founder. If you think about what the founder is having to do for sales, they are identifying new customers and like list building. They're trying to manage campaigns out to them, whether that's even just one-to-one emails and phone calls and LinkedIn messages. They're having conversations online. They are pre-qualifying those clients before then having either a meeting, a coffee, a kind of an informal, to then qualify them a bit further. Then they're perhaps, if it feels like it's right, they're going to scoping out and doing discovery and so on, and then proposing, sending over whatever proposal is, or talking to them, or basically proposing them as the solution. Well, there's only a couple of parts of that where the founder's actually in person, and that's probably the informal chat and then the sort of scoping discovery session. So you can actually start just handing over some of the list building and some of the campaigns and maybe some of the emails, etc. Even maybe some pre-meeting briefing preparation from a junior salesperson or a growth coordinator, so that they're maximizing the founder's time. They can read a briefing for 5 minutes and hop on the call knowing what the situation is. So it's probably not to replicate at first, it's just to try and hand over some of the stuff that's behind the scenes. But then I think at some point you're probably going to want to be putting them in front of prospects and then taking more of those sales from you. And so if you've, I always think that when you're hiring for someone who's relatively junior, and the reason I say this junior sales hire is because if you want to hire a very senior, like a business development director, you're going to spend an awful lot of money in salary. You probably can't afford it. And quite often they will have worked in a large organization and had lots of support around them. And so they transition into startup where they have to do everything. And actually it quite often doesn't work. So by reasoning of the budget, you're probably hiring someone junior to help you out. So in that hiring process, you're not really going to be able to measure them on capabilities or experience or expertise because they haven't had long enough in their career to develop that. So you're going to be trying to hire them based on probably values, like aligned with you, vision, certainly. And so if you're hiring them based on that, then you need to make sure they're totally bought into the problem that you and your business are able to solve and how you solve it. And if they're bought into that, they have values that align with your values, you've given them the vision, then actually they're going to bring their own authenticity to this by being bought into it and doing it themselves. But it's not going to be the same as your authenticity as a founder because you've got probably a lot more experience in your career and a huge different skill set and so
quite
on.
the risk. I mean, just listening to you talk about it, you know, again, being on both sides of that table, trying to implore upon, you know, the founder that I'm talking to and trying to help, or being on this side, listening to the founder telling me what he or she's going to hire. And you're like, but there's a risk. At the end of the day, they need to do something. It's all the more reason why they need to be reaching out and talking to somebody like yourself that has a process, that has lots of experience that you can pull from. Let's go through the sustainability. What's the fastest, most sustainable way you've seen a startup nail the sales transition without losing momentum?
Sorry, just repeat that last bit again. The transition.
The transition. I'm trying to like, you know, they go through a transition and you want to make sure that they don't lose momentum. What's like the fastest, most sustainable way that you've seen a startup nail it?
I think it's down to, honestly, it's discovery and really understanding the problem that you're able to solve for quite a niche audience. If you think about, it sometimes feels counterintuitive to actually narrow down your target market, so reduce the number of people that you can sell your product or service to. But actually, when you do that, you're able to be super specific on the problem that you're solving. So you talk in the right language, you have quite a super niche audience then. And then that allows you to then become a bit of a no-brainer. So if you sort of think about my target market, if they're a founder, they're typically maybe a tech founder without lots of commercial experience. They are still doing all the sales themselves. They don't have a salesperson in yet, but they're looking to scale and get some support in that area, probably thinking about hiring a biz dev person. If they're B2B, typically SaaS, tech, software, although it can work in most industries, but that's where I tend to find I have the biggest impact. Then actually, if I sit down with someone and talk to them, then 50% of the time, unless they've got a major budget problem, then we're going to work together. And that's because I've positioned what I do as such a unique way of helping them. And also, I've made sure that my budget is less than the cost of hiring a junior business development person.
Right.
They're in the position to hire that person. They must have the budget. They're just reassigning that budget for 12 weeks ahead of
Good logic.
person anyway.
Yeah.
So how do you so by going really niche on a problem and a very niche audience, and then make sure you're hiring for values and alignment on your vision, and making sure you've got alignment on that problem solution, that buy-in, the kind of the why are you here doing this. Everybody's rowing in the same direction then, and so that is where I've seen it really take off, because not necessarily about the product or the founder or the market. It's just that you've got yourself really aligned and everyone's rowing in the same direction, and you're just using a simple, repeatable, scalable process.
Yeah, I think alignment, you nailed it. That's the key word there is communicating and making sure that you are both aligned, and that, there's no different connotations of what you're trying to achieve, like making sure that you're talking to the entire team, having some one-on-ones, and also talking collectively. Some people don't want to speak up in those big meetings, but making sure you're having those one-on-ones to make sure that you are both aligned and on the same page. Let's lighten it up, man. Great to kind of get some chunks of what you do on your day-to-day. And I mentioned it earlier, but if you guys missed it, Alec is hanging out in Canary Islands, and yes, I am jealous. He's on a little vacay, and she's taking some time to decide to do an EPicHYPE with me. So I'm gonna now lighten it up. We're gonna have some fun, and we're gonna play a game. You down for that? All right, Alec, it's time to play Epic DNA Discovery. This is a fun little game that I throw out there every once in a while and bring my guests in. And here's how it works. I'll give you the rules, if you will. I'm going to give you 10 questions, and you've got 90 seconds to answer them. I'll have my stopwatch going here. I'm looking for one-word answers. So real simple. Just need you to be quick, be good, and most of all, be epic. Your mission should be to choose. Let's try that again. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to face your fate, answering all 10 questions. Should you succeed, you, my friend, will be deemed epic gain status here today on EPicHYPE. However, if you fall short because you've had maybe just a little too much peanut and not enough colada, then I will be forced to have to give the epic gods to issue out an epic fail. So it's all fun and games, right? All right. So Alec Harden-Henry, do you accept this mission, my friend?
I do, with open arms.
You've got 90 seconds starting. I guess actually when I start the timer, right? You've got 90 seconds starting right now. First question coming at you. What's the one word that describes founder-led sales?
Hectic.
What's the worst sales trait you see in early hires?
Trying to know everything.
What's the biggest growth killer in startups?
Trust and a lack of humbleness.
What's one word every founder hates to hear?
No.
What's one word that turns a buyer off instantly?
Just let me load up the slides.
Most overrated sales metric?
Conversion rate.
Best signal a startup is ready to scale?
Revenue has plateaued.
Good. If a startup growth had a spirit animal, what is it?
An Arabian desert fox.
Your favorite annual business conference?
Climb.
And if your biopic dropped in the movie theaters next week, which famous actor would play Alex Harden-Henry?
Jim Carrey.
You, my friend, finished exactly at 90 seconds. I'm sitting there going, it's going to be close. Oh, no, not epic fail. You're epic gain. My bad. Epic gain.
Woo.
Good job. Jim Carrey, huh? You got a little Jim Carrey action going there?
Ever since I watched Dumb and Dumber as a kid, it's just, I love the guy. Yeah.
Absolute classic, man. All right. Well, I can see that happening. All right. Fun times. Always like to get a smile out of the guests and put them in a relaxed state. All right. So thank you for playing that one. Let's give people an opportunity to find you out there. I mentioned it earlier with your post, but some shameless plugs, maybe even a website. I shared your website earlier, but go ahead and throw out a shameless plug where people can reach out, ask you some questions, maybe even retain you.
Cool. So my website is startup-growth.co.uk. I think a really neat way to get in touch with me is that every Friday I offer one free of charge slot to a founder in what I call sales and marketing surgery. And so just bring your biggest sales and marketing challenge, just one, hopefully. And within the hour, we'll dissect what the problem is and then find out what the actual root cause of the problem is. It's usually underlying problems from whatever manifests in the first place. We'll then come up with a plan that's very simple with a few steps for the founder to then go away and solve that problem within the next 2 weeks. We get through all of that in an hour. I've got a web page on my site, which is called Sales and Marketing Surgery, and it's got a booking link to the calendar, so you can book into there and hopefully get a little bit of advice on a specific challenge that you've got.
That's awesome. I love that you're doing that. That's kind of like paying it forward. And, if it's a free hour consultation and you're learning something and they're learning something, and if there's a match, good for you for putting that out there, and also kind of keeps you, spreading yourself out there for building your network, which obviously that's what you came out to Climb. Thank you for the plug on Climb, by the way. So good stuff. So you guys have his website, and obviously you guys can find him at LinkedIn as well. And Alec, man, it was fun having you on. I met you briefly at Climb, and we said, hey, next time I'm in the UK, let's make sure we get to a pub and clink some pints. But we're here virtually, and we're definitely going to clink some pints when I make my way back over the pond.
Who knows? You might find me on a panel session in Climb Dubai as well.
Ah, yes. Well, you know what? I'll definitely make a note of that, and you'll be hearing from me shortly. So, man, enjoy the Canary Islands, enjoy the fam, and thanks again for coming on to EPicHYPE with me, and on short notice, by the way. And this was a lot of fun. Definitely look forward to doing this again down the road. Speaking of panels, maybe having you on a panel talking about startup growth, and obviously that's right in your wheelhouse, and sounds like you're doing a phenomenal job.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me on. I really enjoyed the conversation. It felt like it had a good mix of hopefully a little bit of advice and thoughts on the space, and then a little bit of lightening up and humor at the end. So I appreciate your time. Thanks, Edward.
Absolutely, man. I'm going to take you off stage for a minute. Just hang out in the green room. Let me just finish up, pay some bills, and I'll bring you back up. But man, Alec, thanks again for coming on, man. Good times, and really easy to talk to you, and really admire the success you're having. And hopefully EPicHYPE gives you an opportunity to get some more eyeballs and ears out there that want to reach out and give you their business.
Thanks, Edward. Appreciate that.
You got it, my man. All right, guys, that was Alec. What a good dude. And like I said, I do need to pay some bills. So just giving some plugs and keeping you guys in the know for how you can reach out and get more information. You can head over to the YouTube channel. We've got some great stuff queued up. I got some great stuff queued up coming around the bend, coming out of the Climb event that happened out there in Leeds. But before I get into that, let's give Prancer another little promo here. I want to thank them for being the sponsor for today's EPicHYPE episode. Cloud security that actually keeps up. That's Prancer.io, real-time compliance, AI-powered validation, and attack simulations that don't wait for the breach. It's proactive, it's powerful, it's how modern DevSecOps get it done. Level up at Prancer.io and stop flying blind in the cloud. You guys can head over and ask Farshid over there if you can get a little discount. Just mention the word promo code EPIC. To catch more full-length episodes on EPicHYPE, you guys can head over to Epic Starts with EP. That's the social handle, Epic Starts with EP. That's a wrap. Tied up with a bow. My name is EP. This is EPicHYPE, reminding all of you that everything epic starts with EP. We'll see you guys next time.